All right, welcome back to ABA exam review and the beginning of our RBT practice exam series. These are going to now be based on the third edition task list. The new task list starts in 2026. So if you're listening in 2025, this is likely December, and you will be nearing the end of the second edition task list. From here on, everything we do will be based on the third edition, given that we're transferring over in January. As always, we're going to go through each question together, break them down, and help understand why the right answers are right and the wrong answers are wrong. Be sure to subscribe for all of our updates. Check out btexamreview.com for all of our study materials. When you pass, let us know so we can include you in the Sunday shout-out. Work hard, study hard. Let's get going. A behavior plan for disruptive behavior includes provide frequent praise and attention during appropriate engagement with activities. When disruption occurs, use planned ignoring, turn away, remove eye contact, do not speak to or about the client until 10 seconds of appropriate behavior occurs. During implementation, the client throws a toy that nearly hits another child. What should you do? This situation is going to occur a lot as an RBT, where the behavior plan says for you to intervene in a certain way, but we know we can't predict for everything and clients are unpredictable, right? So if things happen in the field where you are caught off guard or you feel they're out of the ordinary or they're not covered by the behavior plan, what's our next step? In this case, we're supposed to provide praise and attention, but then use planned ignoring when disruption does occur. This time the client throws a toy that nearly hits another child. Now from your perspective, maybe that's dangerous, maybe it's unacceptable. But what does the behavior plan say? It says, when disruption occurs, use planned ignoring. It's the importance of a good, thorough behavior plan. Maybe that is the plan. If so, and there's nothing else written, given this information there's not, what should you do? A, continue planned ignoring as stated in the plan. Yes, if that's what the plan says, and no one's hurt, no one's injured, you should implement planned ignoring. Unless it feels like somebody is hurt or about to be hurt, you need to implement the behavior plan as indicated. You can then talk to your supervisor once the situation is done, but for the time being, if that's how it's written, that's how you implement. B, have the client pick up the toy and then resume planned ignoring. Having the client pick up the toy would not be planned ignoring, it would be providing attention. C, reprimand the client for dangerous behavior. Again, that would not be planned ignoring, that would be providing some sort of attention. And D, end planned ignoring permanently since it's not safe. Well, that's not your call to make, that is your supervisor's decision, given the fact that this is the information we have, this situation occurred. All we have is the behavior plan to go by, and that is what you need to do. Continue planned ignoring as stated in the plan. You're implementing a behavior plan in a classroom with a student. Your client begins engaging in disruptive behavior that is not dangerous, but is distracting other students. The behavior plan specifies planned ignoring for disruptive behavior. However, the teacher asks you to intervene because it's affecting the other students' learning. What should you do? All right, now again, we're in a classroom, but this time you're working as an RBT inside the classroom. And in the classroom, if there's a teacher present, we have to respect the fact that it's their classroom. However, our primary goal is still to provide the best service for the client and to adhere to what our supervisor has said. So if the teacher says you need to intervene and you're implementing a plan where it's also planned ignoring, now we're in a tough spot, right? It's not necessarily a safety thing, but now it's affecting other students according to the teacher. How do you respond? How do you go about this? A, follow the teacher's instructions and intervene. B, implement the behavior plan as written while positioning yourself to minimize disruption to others and communicate with your supervisor. C, remove your client from the classroom. D, stop implementing the behavior plan entirely. So in this case, it's going to be difficult, right? We can't necessarily follow the teacher's instructions and intervene because the behavior plan is written a certain way to control the behavior in a certain way. So you're going to have to do your best until you get a chance to communicate with your supervisor to minimize your disruption to others. So that's what you're going to have to work with the teacher on. Let them know that you will talk to the supervisor as soon as possible, but for the time being, you need to implement the plan as stated, and you'll try to minimize disruption as much as possible. right? This is going to be a situation where the supervisor needs to step in and go over with the teacher how they're going to handle what's occurring here. C, remove your client from the classroom. If that's not in the behavior plan, we definitely don't want removal or escape to become part of the behavior. D, stop implementing the behavior plan entirely. Of course not, right? That's not your decision to make. It's not the teacher's decision to make. It's not an easy situation, but what you need to do is try to appease both sides for the time being and talk to your supervisor as soon as possible. So in this case, implement the behavior plan as written, minimize disruption, communicate with supervisor. You're working with a 7-year-old client who engages in property destruction. During today's session, he threw a book at 10:15 a.m., flipped a table at 10:47 a.m., and ripped a worksheet at 11:03 a.m. during your 2-hour session. His behavior plan required you to calculate rate of behavior. What is the rate of property destruction for this session? Straightforward question, we have to calculate rate. What is rate? Rate is frequency over time. So in this case, what is our frequency? Well, we have throwing a book at 10:15, we have flipping a table at 10:47, ripping a worksheet at 11:03. So our frequency is 3. What is our time? Well, we have a 2-hour session. So what is the rate? Well, we do have a situation where we can calculate by session, we can calculate hour. It depends on what we're trying to find. So let's look at A, 3 per session. Well, if we have a 2-hour session and 3 instances of this happened, then yes, 3 per session looks about right. What about 0.67 per hour? Well, if we divide 3 by 2, what is that going to give us? Now it's going to give us 1.5. So we really have 1.5 per hour rather than 0.67. So we have A and C, and this really should say A and C, not A and D. But we are looking at a situation where we have A and C, 3 per session, and 1.5 per hour. And that's simply rate, right? Frequency over time, and however you want to present it, or however the question wants you to present it, that's how you give the data. A client is learning to tolerate delay of reinforcement. 2 weeks ago, they received reinforcement immediately after each correct response. Last week, you implemented a 2-second delay. This week, the plan calls for a 5-second delay. Today, during the second trial, the client provided the correct response. You wait 5 seconds, but at 4 seconds, the client begins to whine. What should you do? Okay, very real-life situation here. We have a client learning to tolerate delay of reinforcement. Now, is it a good idea to delay reinforcement? Depends, right, on what your supervisor says. We're not here to evaluate the technicalities of the question. Delay of reinforcement. 2 weeks ago, I used to get reinforcement immediately. Last week, we went to 2 seconds. Now we're at 5. Today, you wait 5, but at 4, they whine. The plan says wait for a 5-second delay. What should we do? A, provide reinforcement immediately to prevent escalation. So again, a lot of these questions are centered around fighting the urge to make adjustments on the fly based on what's happening in the moment. The reason we have plans is so we're not always changing how we're engaging with the client. The client's not always going to behave and engage the same, but with a plan, we can be consistent. So we need to be consistent. B, complete the 5-second delay as planned while monitoring whether the delay needs to be adjusted. Yeah, you still need to complete 5 seconds. They start to whine, you need to wait 1 more second and then give the reinforcement. Now, if now we're reinforcing whining, that's something we have to evaluate as far as the delay. C, extend the delay to 10 seconds to teach better tolerance. Plan states 5. Let's be consistent. D, remove all reinforcement. They didn't lose the reinforcement, right? We're just on a delay. So unless it explicitly says if they whine, no reinforcement, we still need to deliver that reinforcement after 5 seconds. So complete that delay and then monitor whether it needs to be adjusted. A behavior plan includes provide reinforcement on an FI 2-minute schedule for on-task behavior. You start the timer. After 2 minutes, you look at the client. They are off task. What should you do? All right, so this says they need to be on task for 2 minutes, and then after 2 minutes is up, if they're on task, they get reinforcement. This is a fixed interval, right? It's time-based, okay, not response-based. So if we have a fixed interval schedule, you start timer, then after 2 minutes, they're off task. Have they completed the schedule? Well, no. What do? A, reset the timer and provide no reinforcement. Yeah, here we have to go back to 2 minutes. It's fixed. It's not on an average, so they have to be engaged or complete it for 2 minutes. B, wait until the client returns to on-task behavior, then provide reinforcement. Well, if we're trying to get a 2-minute schedule, it needs to be on 2 minutes. C, provide reinforcement anyway, since 2 minutes elapsed. No, right? They have to be engaged in the right behavior. D, extend the interval to 3 minutes. It's fixed, so we can't change up that interval. Reset that timer, provide no reinforcement. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe. Check out btexamreview.com for all of our study materials. When you pass, let us know so we can include you in the Sunday shout-out. Work hard, study hard. See you soon.